Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host, HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today we are going to take you back to the past to play the shitty games that suck ass because it's been 20 years since, honestly, the man who shaped YouTube the way we know it today, at least in terms of the YouTuber era side of things. Because we're talking about the angriest gamer you've ever heard, the angry Nintendo nerd, the angry Atari Sega nerd, the angry video game nerd. Can you tell I grew up with some of those videos? Maybe
No,
not
not
since the
really.
conception. But, okay, no, okay. Good. I'm glad. Well, anyway, if you didn't notice, the Angry Video Game Nerd is turning 20 this year. And if it makes you feel old, welcome to the club. But I figured, you know what? The nerd is such an influential figure on how we have, on how we, on how YouTube is like today in terms of, because he may not have inspired everyone to the same degree anymore, but the general idea is that I don't think if we didn't have the Angry Video Game Nerd, we wouldn't have a lot of analysis videos. We wouldn't have people using YouTube to do reviews. We may not have even had this podcast. I don't know, but it's honestly kind of thanks to this guy that it became the idea that people can make this. They don't have to be a part of a big website. They don't need to have a lot of experience or something. You just need the passion, you need the tools, and you could do it if you and you could give it a shot, and maybe you could do it because a lot of people who were inspired by the nerd have taken over YouTube to some degree, and I think say, and I have to say this before we start. Whatever we're gonna say about the history of the nerd, I appreciate James Rolfe a lot, and I may have been inspired by him too to some degree. So, no matter what I say, James Rolfe deserves all the credit and happy 20th anniversary to this show that basically shaped the internet. Wolf, what is your experience with the nerd?
I've watched him here or there in the past, but I've never been a big fan of his content. Like it's never appealed to me personally.
Yeah.
And watching more of it to prepare for doing this episode, I kind of definitely cements in my mind that yeah, his content isn't for me, right? Especially the older style stuff. Some of the newer style stuff I think is better, but it's still
Interesting.
not for me. Well,
Mhm,
this comes down to something I have talked about, and I'll talk about it more here after just a
mhm,
bit. But something I've talked about in quite a few of the episodes we've done in the past here on the Outcast and the Berkcast, right?
mhm.
And ultimately, like he's the source of that problem. Like I hate to
Uh,
say it, like his content is the source. Like what I'm specifically talking about is the idea of criticism online, right? And
mhm.
how that was shaped. And his videos and his start is kind of the source of that problem and how the idea and the discourse of online criticism was shaped to be
Mm.
much more, in my opinion, much more geared towards negativity than what it should have been.
There were definitely a lot who didn't get it because
No,
to a lot
fair.
of people it's basically there's the joke was this guy is reviewing that game, and just because he says fuck 20 times a second, that automatically makes it funny. And no, the nerd essentially, well, he's called, for the record, he's called the nerd, but and not to say that he's necessarily a nerd stereotype, but the joke is that he's taking this old game that nobody cares about anymore way too seriously.
Yeah.
And the jokes land because whatever game he's reviewing doesn't care. It can't care. It's a piece of programming. And the people who made it, what do they care? They made their money.
Hmm.
So it's like, so it's not like that he is
It's a
reviewing
joke
something.
persona,
Yeah.
which is fine. There's
And
again, let me be clear. Like I don't blame him for it, but like
mhm.
you can't
It's
deny
that
that
people
he
took.
spawned a lot of that, right? And it's not his fault, but it did come from a lot of him.
Yeah.
whether it came from people just not getting the idea or not getting the joke or what have you. A lot of that did spawn from him, and it did, as you said, it shaped internet discourse, right, for a long time, and still does really.
Hmm.
But like I
Yeah.
sit here and say his content isn't for me. I'm not a huge fan, but that doesn't mean that I do not respect and understand. Right? I don't want
Yeah.
to say it would never exist, but it may not exist. None of the internet, as you know it today, may not exist in the exact same way that it does now, if not for him doing what he did. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many people that were inspired by him, and I think do his format better than what he does and did. Right?
Because I tell you what,
Because they
something that I
perfected it.
didn't, yeah, and not maybe not necessarily perfected it, but
But they
there's
took it further,
because
right? He
yeah,
walked
they
so
took it
they
for
could run, essentially.
definitely, yeah, because what I want to say that is that there are two types of YouTubers that kind of came from this, and there's what people call like personality based, which these days seems to be more wacky. Like you have the Cat Icaruses and Scott the Was,
Jontron.
which John Tron too, to some degree
He
goes for
kind of
that
fell
like
off.
wacky.
He kind of fell off somewhat. Like kind of went
Mhm,
back more to the background somewhat. I would say, but for a while there, like I would say, JonTron was like you know going back in like to those early
mhm.
2010s era, right?
Yeah,
He was
and
probably
because
the
I think
bigger name because
yeah,
he did like
mm,
he was one of those people who took this format and ran with it.
because I think also John Tron would do, if I remember correctly, right? He would also do games that were more recent.
Yeah, he would.
So that also helps. And then you have Cat Icarus, which was more the PS1 generation,
Hmm.
and and then it kind of did lead to my favorite YouTuber who was inspired by the nerd. Some call me Johnny. He basically took it to the idea that what. I just want to tell people if I like a game or not. Like my shtick is that I'm just going to be the everyman, and now people seem to imitate that more, that they don't necessarily want to be angry or wacky or any
Well,
of
I
that
think
stuff. They just want to be themselves and express themselves. And I think this is where you start getting like the Fearless. So even our friend Audrey kind of falls in there.
Mhm. Well,
So
I think that's right. That spawned from people, they like again, like the idea of negative criticism, right? And bringing that back up. A lot of internet discourse around criticism is very negative. And like whenever someone talks about a show or a video game or a movie or a book or what have you, a lot of the discourse more often than not tends to be geared towards the negative. And again, I think some of that is, because of how the early internet was shaped, right? Maybe it would have always ended up like this. Maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know. We'll never know. But what I do
mhm.
know is that I think you're seeing a lot of people doing different types of content now, and they're trying to do not just the I hate this, here's why I hate it, but hey, yeah, this is bad. Here's why I think it's bad. But also, here's some things I like about it too, right? Even, Angry Video Game Nerd, like James Rolfe, like you can see some of his newer content. He's doing this too, right? Where he's
Yeah, and
changing up how he
especially
looks at things.
And even in some of the nerd videos, he has points where he says, like, if he covers not just one particular game, but like a series of games, he would say, "Hey, you know what? This particular game, this one was good. I actually like this one,"
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And also, it's also important to say that some people would try to kind of come out and say, "Oh, when I'm making my videos, I'm playing a character. It's not me all the way. It's a character." But with the nerd and James Rolfe, it feels like this is a legit statement because James Rolfe is nothing like the nerd.
No, like watching his making of an episode, right? Like
Yeah.
you can see a very huge different personality, and even in his newer stuff, it's a big personality shift because it is a persona that he's putting on for those videos, which is
There was
fine. You can do
actually
that. There's nothing wrong with that.
there was actually a video where James Rolfe as himself he reviewed like the Ghostbusters game that came out. I think it was in 2009.
Mhm.
It was There was like a Ghostbusters game that had like the original cast in it, and it was essentially Ghostbusters 3. And so because a lot of people asked him to review it, he decided to, you know what, I played it. I'm gonna let you know what I thought. And he did this effect that like there's two of the same person on screen. And so like the nerd comes in and will tell him, yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's play this awful game. And James tells him, no, 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 this game is not old and not cheaty. And the nerd goes, well, I guess you don't need me. And he leaves.
Mm.
That to me was like just seeing that bit. It kind of shows you that James Rolfe and the Angry Video Game Nerd are not the same. They are
Mhm.
the same person overall, but in terms of personality, no, they are not the same.
Oh, fair. But yeah, like what I'm saying though is because because of a lot of his content in the early days of the internet, criticism was shaped to be more geared towards the negative, and I think nowadays you are seeing a pushback against that a lot more, right? In that
Because I also
because people
think
want more than that, I think now, right?
yeah, and also I think because one of the things that he does in his videos, which for the record is funny a lot of the time, but
Mm-hmm.
that he would look at something in the game and he would say like, "What the hell is this doing like in the background?" Or "What is this animation?" Like there's a bit, and I think it's when he does like Deadly Towers or something that when the main character dies, he spins around in place and goes down. And so he said he looks like he's been flushed down a toilet, and it's like that's funny, but then people actually think they take it as more than just a joke and try
Mm-hmm.
to apply it in other games as actual criticism.
Mm-hmm.
That's no, that's something I can't agree with. Like, if it's a joke, people, it's just because the animation looks funny doesn't necessarily mean it means the game sucks overall. The game does suck in this case, but you get what I mean.
No, no, fair. Like
It created this thing that nitpicks are suddenly valid criticism,
yeah,
and this is a no.
it's that, and like again, it's the hey, someone's saying something good about this thing that I hate, so let me come in and say something bad about it because I have to come in and say bad things about it because I can't just let someone talk about something. Whether they like it or not doesn't matter. I have to come in and talk about it too. Like a lot of that kind of discourse was shaped by this, right? And again, I don't blame him for it. It's not inherently his fault. It's just what came from what he did, right?
Yeah, what kind? And then, ironically, it kind of came back to bite them in the ass because now when people are criticizing the newer Angry Video Game Nerd, or the newer projects that James Rolfe does, he responds to some of those criticism as criticisms of the assholish variety, and it's like, oh, suddenly people are using what he taught them to criticize him. So I guess karma,
I
maybe.
mean, maybe, but it's also like that's just the internet, right? The internet is all gas, no break,
Mhm.
100% of the time.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's just what you have to deal with nowadays.
Mhm.
But yeah,
And to be honest, I think people like we may get. You know what? Let's kind of talk about this now. I'm not sure. Did I tell you about the controversy James Rolfe faced with Ghostbusters 2016?
nope.
So basically, he's a big Ghostbusters fan, right?
Hmm.
And when the movie was about to be released, he uploaded a video that says that the title is Ghostbusters 2016. No review, I refuse. And in the video, he basically says, "Hey, you know what? Other than going to see it and then complain about how bad it is, I'm going to do something no one has thought of. I'm not going to see it." And people assumed based on this comment that he's chauvinistic, even though he doesn't mention gender in
Mm.
the video whatsoever. If anything, the one time he does mention gender is that he says that it's stupid people are calling it the female Ghostbusters.
Fair.
So people assume that this is it because he said, "I don't want to see it. I don't," and he gives some legitimate reasons as to why. He says, "I view a lot of bad movies with pleasure. I do this all the time, but Ghostbusters is something that he holds at a very high regard, and he doesn't want to contribute to something that doesn't really make sense for him because there was never ever a proper Ghostbusters 3."
Mm.
So honestly makes sense. Why did people blow up at him and call him chauvinistic? Fuck if I know. For the
Yeah,
record, I haven't seen the movie myself due to not being the biggest Ghostbusters fan in general. I like the first movie. I'm just not that big into it, so I never
oh,
really
fair, fair.
cared.
I'm not
Mm,
huge into it
I
either.
haven't seen the newer ones too, so just putting it out there. I don't really care, so that's the
Fair
reason.
enough. Fair enough.
But anyway, going back to the nerd himself.
Well, we
So
should talk.
yeah,
I just want to talk a little bit about something else he inspired, right? That came from the kind of content that people started doing. Like, all right, so we've talked about like he started doing like the negative review kind of joke persona stuff.
yeah,
People evolved from that. You got people doing other types of joke personas that weren't just wholly negative or shitting on something, right? And you got Cat Icarus, JonTron, and so many other people that kind of evolved from that. Something else
and
that
to
evolved from
be
that
fair,
is something else that evolved from that is the long form essay content, stuff you see, like you mentioned Audrey, stuff that she does somewhat,
mhm,
or another
I
channel,
mentioned
Ahoy.
Shafrelis.
Hmm? Go ahead.
I mentioned Shafrelis too, Shafrelis
Yeah.
Productions, and
Yep. Or
there are a
H
lot.
Bomber guy is another big one, right? Big name.
Yeah, there are a lot of names. Like I could probably, we probably mentioned some, but there are like a
Oh, there's
million
so many.
more.
The long
There are
form
so
essay has
many.
really taken off in recent
Hmm.
times, I think. People
Yeah.
love that. And
Hmm.
I love that that's a thing now. I don't know if the long form essay would be a thing without this, right? Starting it
Yeah.
all.
Hmm.
Again,
Agreed.
maybe you could say a lot of this stuff would have become a thing eventually, but it may not be in the same format or in the same way that we know it now. Again, like I said,
Yeah.
I respect what, he means to the early history of the internet, right? I fully respect that because
And
it's a big thing. Like his name and what he did inspired a lot of people.
and that would also kind of, we'll talk about this later, but in a way, the Angry Video Game Nerd movie was the first real time that a movie got crowdfunded.
It wasn't the first YouTuber video though, I don't think, was it?
No, it wasn't necessarily the
Because I
first.
think like there's the Fred
Name.
movies, if anybody remembers those, and I
Mm,
think the
all right.
Annoying Orange
Like, no,
too had a
and
movie. If anybody remembers
here's
that,
the thing. Here's the thing, but with the Fred movie and the Annoying Orange, but I think these were things that were eventually bought. Like there was some sort of a studio
yeah, there's
backing to
just
those,
like
as far
yeah, yeah. I
uh,
think
with the
Nickelodeon backed a lot of
with
the
the
Annoying
Angry
Orange.
Video Game Nerd, but with the Angry Video Game Nerd, what happened is that he opened a donor through Indiegogo. The movie was fan funded, and people actually made a few comments about that because nobody really knew that this was ever going to be a thing. Right? Like people thought he was scamming people for money. That
Mm.
and eventually now there are a lot of indie movies that are made possible through Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever. So in a way, he also started that.
Well,
But we'll get to the movie later.
hmm
We'll get to the movie a bit later. Right now, I just have to say though that looking back at the because the Neld started in 2004 when James made these two short films called Bad NES games. One was for Castlevania 2, and the other was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
hmm
I would say that these two videos in particular, well, they are kind of like the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs of AVGN in the way that they are significantly important, but looking back, I don't think they aged that well.
no,
They have their
not at
moments,
all.
but they have their moments, but because in Castlevania 2 is basically the general concept of why would this, and also that he tells at the end, you have to thank me for for telling you not to waste your time with this piece of shit, and it's like, dude, this is an NES game. I don't think I don't think there was even a way to play Castlevania 2 not on the NES at that point. Besides emulators, I mean.
Mhm.
So like why would anyone care? And then the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde video I would give a bit more credit because this is the first time you actually see James as the nerd. He has the white shirt. He's drinking the Rolling Rock, which apparently was a complete mistake that he didn't intend on. It just the type of beer he had at the house, so might as well. and so this one is a bit more, you know, influential to the rest of the series, I suppose. And then Karate Kid is when things are starting to be to this. Karate Kid is the first episode that I think is still kind of holds up in terms of legit funny to some degree.
Hmm.
And then you start having the other. I think season one in general, you can tell that he was experimenting a lot, but I still really enjoy the trilogy of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Power Glove. Like that, those three were kind of connected to each other, and I think those are still funny. And also, you can tell that James Wolfe comes from the horror world because these two, you can tell that he's in his element doing
Hmm.
these effects and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I would agree.
So let me ask you something. When you started kind of catching up on those, or something, was there anything that particularly stuck out to you?
What do you mean stuck out?
Like in terms of either a joke that went too far or something that actually got a laugh out of you?
I I mean, in the early stuff, to be honest, not as much. I feel like,
Hmm.
like I said, the content's not for me, right?
Yeah.
Like I will
Uh,
fully admit that there's a lot here that I don't enjoy, and maybe it's just again it comes back to like my personal sensibilities and just I'm not into this type of content anymore. So looking back, I watch it and I'm like, man, this isn't great. I
fair
respect what
enough.
it is, but this isn't great. No, I will say like
Fair
the
enough.
Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, some of that stuff like, all right, I'm getting into a little bit more like, all right, this is fun, this is enjoyable. This does more a little bit more of the skit humor which I'm used to and more familiar with. But
Mhm.
a lot of his older humor, right, is very every other word curse word or, hey, here's a fart joke or a poop joke or here's a throw up joke and it's just like, yep, this is
Yeah,
that early aughts that I remember. Nice. That late 90s, early aughts. Here we go. I'm back. I don't
yeah.
want to be back.
Fair enough. It does remind me, but in the Nightmare on Elm Street interview, there's a bit that legit still cracks me up, where he says that, you know, that the game has multiplayer, and he says, if finding someone else to play with me, I have a better chance of cloning myself. And then out of nowhere, it just cuts to four nerds playing the multiplayer. It's like it's so random. Why would it be there? But it's there, and it gets you, and it it gets you off guard,
No, that
and
was
I
pretty
like it.
funny. And I
Yeah.
respect, right? Because you got to remember, doing that back when that was made, that was not an
Yeah.
easy thing to edit. Like, I kind of
Oh,
respect
definitely.
that, right? Because,
Mm.
like, that's early 2000s, right? I forget
Yeah,
exactly
definitely.
when that came out, but
I think this was 2007?
yeah, like, that doing that kind of editing by your like that kind of editing
Oh, no,
and
no, 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 no. It was 2006, actually. This
I
was the
mean
first. This was the.
still yeah, right, doing that kind of editing and doing something like that back then by yourself essentially was not easy at
Yeah.
all.
Hmm. And like I said, especially with some of the digital stuff, like there's a point where like Freddy cuts one of the nerds in half, and like you see the nerd like being all cut up and everything, and then there's this one arm that still gives Freddy the finger. Like it's obviously it's like haha, something vulgar and everything, but at
Mhm.
the time this was funny. Nobody
No,
really
fair.
did anything like that. That was a
It's
that
true.
was really that was funny. And then I think it's also the time where he started moving on to being the angry video game nerd as opposed to the angry Nintendo nerd to avoid copyright with Nintendo, obviously. And this is where it started to really catch on, and especially in 2007, I think, is the year where he started to feeling more confident doing it. because now there started to be a bit more. How do I say this? It started to have a bit more of a formula to some degree, and then like 2007 also has one of the more iconic episodes where how many just can you imagine going back to 2007, you discover this YouTube thing, and the first thing you see is this guy beating up a guy in a Bugs Bunny costume and taking a shit on it.
Mm-hmm.
No, can you just imagine what it was probably like at the time? Today, it's like, okay, fine, it's probably not, but just to think that back then, this was like revolutionary. This is the thing that set YouTube up on on a collision course to be what it is today. Say what you will. This is the general idea that this is what inspired YouTube is kind of funny to me,
Oh,
and
sure.
and I still think regardless of the rest of the video, but the bit where he's just playing the game and suddenly you have like Bugs Bunny, quote unquote, coming into the room, and the nerd is actually excited at the beginning. That he's like, "Oh my god, in my house, Bugs Bunny! I can't believe it!" And suddenly he just demolishes them. He punches them and knocks them out. It's like I show this bit to people these days who've never heard of the AVGN. I just show them this bit, and I assure you, every person I show this to without context just loses their mind over that because it's so dumb.
Mm.
But it works. It hits because everyone knows Bugs Bunny, I suppose.
No, fair. Yeah, he's
Mm,
very iconic.
yeah, yeah, and then, so suddenly you get this guy who's you get a guy in a costume, obviously, and you get this guy. Oh my God, Bugs Bunny is in my house! Beats him up.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
not everyone's type of humor, but you know what? Again, I will probably say this a lot. For the time, nobody really did this, and people wouldn't necessarily see it coming. And I think that's kind of what makes it work, and what can destroy it a bit when like it's that you needed to be there to get it. To these days, it might not catch you as much.
Well, you got to think, right? Like at the time, the only other
Mhm.
type of content you would see on the internet was, and kind of like this is kind of the other group of people who shaped YouTube as you know it today as well, right? You had your play by like literally play by post let's plays where people would
Mhm.
like go onto forums and upload smaller videos of let's plays or like talk about the let's
Yeah.
play in a forum post, right? A lot of people don't remember
Mhm.
that was the early days of let's plays. Like if you want to
Yeah.
hear someone who was around during that time of the early days of let's plays and like hear them talk
Yeah.
about it, you go look at Proton John or Nintendo Capri Sun or I know
Mhm.
he's having like some controversy surrounding him right now, but Chugga Conway, like those were the other like
Yeah.
that was the other side of YouTube that started to be shaped was the let's plays, right? And
Yeah. The
like
Let's Plays were also a big thing. You're right, and to some degree, even though not games, but at that time we already also had the Nostalgia Critic,
yes,
and and while it is about movies, but you need to remember that this was also the time when they did this thing where like the Nostalgia Critic called out the nerd, and they have like this bit of rivalry, which was obviously fake. Right? Looking back, you realize that it was fake because
yeah.
they also worked together to do all of these fights and everything. But I think it was also it was the first time, even if it was fake, it was the first time you had what is now called the YouTube drama.
Mhm.
Only nobody still stole money, nobody sexually harassed anyone. It was just two people having fun with it.
Yeah. But he
Sadly,
you know,
this would inspire actual problems. But what
well, I
can
don't
you
know if it
do?
inspired actual problems, just have happened, but yeah, I get you. But like he's another one who, you look back at his old content, you can see a bunch, you can see like, the more angry idea of a person, right? And then you look at his newer content, very different, right?
Yeah.
And again, like,
Well,
and this kind of gets into I know some people like look at this era of time, right? And we'll describe it as toxic positivity. And that is a problem. I think we have, started to go too much in the other direction, right? But
Yeah.
like in response to all of the toxic negativity that from the past that we still have problems with and have not gotten over yet, but there is a balance, right? And I think eventually we'll get there. We will find it eventually, but I do think you are starting to see, if you've not already seen, really people finding that balance as it is already, and like really making what I think are much better videos now than what we were getting in the past.
Yeah, I agree. And
Again, like I said, right? Fully respect what the Angry Video Game Nerd stands for, especially in the early days of the internet and how it was shaped because of him. I don't remember if he was first or if Proton John and stuff like the Let's Play stuff was first. I feel like the Let's Play stuff was first, right?
I can't really tell you what came first. Like, there's a good chance that he wasn't the first, but it
Well, I think
always
he was the
feels,
first doing what he did specifically. No one else was doing that. I feel like
yeah,
video
like
game content was still a thing before him, and I feel
mm,
like the idea of Let's Plays were a thing, or at least short form Let's Play stuff. But
maybe.
him doing what he
Yeah,
did, I think he was the first of that brand, right? Of that kind of content.
this is something
Feel
that's
like.
kind of, it feels a bit vague these days to remember what exactly came
Well,
when, but
it's
I think
hard
it
too,
was.
right? Because like the
Mhm.
Wayback Machine doesn't have a lot of stuff from back then. There's probably a lot of small people who came before him that did a few things and then just disappeared, and
Yeah,
because they didn't get as
because
popular or they just had to quit, stuff like that.
mhm. Because I also mentioned, that the nerd started in 2004 technically, but the early videos weren't uploaded to YouTube until 2006. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe there was something before he came along, but all things considered, he was the first to actually do it. It just wasn't available to the masses until 2 years later.
No, that's like again, right? Because YouTube didn't really exist until YouTube wasn't big until I want to say like didn't start to get big until like
I
around
think
that
it really
2008,
I
2009
want to
ish.
say that like at around 2005, 2006 was
Well,
when it
2005 is when it
started.
started, right?
Oh, right. I don't remember if it was 2004 or 2005 when it came out, but let's say 2005, 6 is like when I was exposed to it, and this is when I discovered that people can upload trailers there, people can make music videos and stuff.
Well, that was the
This is
Wild
like,
West. That was the early days of
y-
YouTube. Anything went. You could do anything, right?
yeah, totally. Like totally, totally old west, and then I think, yeah, I don't remember when I first saw a Let's Play, but I think it was like in the around 2008 or something when the concept became
Mm-hmm.
familiar to me. And the nerd was already around back then. So when exactly did it start? I don't know, but it is maybe correlating a bit.
No, that's fair.
So let me ask you, because you said that the type of humor and stuff is not necessarily your thing, but when did you feel like because you mentioned there was a change? When did you start feeling like there was a change in
Ooh.
your attitude?
Like towards a lot of his content.
Hmm.
I would say looking at like kind of the list you gave me, I feel like, like looking at the list of stuff you give me, like, hey, watch this list of stuff to like kind of get yourself caught back up and so you can, get a reminder of everything. I would say Godzilla onwards, I started enjoying it more from about
Hmm.
that era. There's a few I enjoyed here or there in the past, like the Batman stuff, right? And the Spider-Man
Yeah.
stuff, a little bit, and a few others here or there, but I would say like Godzilla Onward, I started enjoying it a lot more. I think there's a lot more that I found enjoyable about it.
Fun fact: the Godzilla episode and James reviewing all the movies, as himself for his Monster Madness series. That was what got me into Godzilla.
Oh, fair.
Because at this point I was just watching this because I'm like, well, I kind of like the nerd, I want to see the new episode. And you know how when a person talks about something with passion, there's a good chance that it can catch you, that
Yeah.
like that it can. So I feel this his passion for Godzilla came through in that video, and that journey that he just wanted a game where he can fight with all the monsters, and just have fun, and like nobody gave him that. He was waiting for so long, and nobody actually gave him what he wanted. And especially that Godzilla GBA game where he's like, okay, let's see what this is gonna be, and then you see this chibi little dragon that's supposed to be Godzilla, and you're like, what the fuck? And so this is one of those moments where like his reaction is literally your own, because what the hell is this?
You
And
won't get
then
games
there's
like that no more, man.
what?
You won't get games like that no more, man. Like in general, you won't get games like that no more. That was again those early days of just like some industries. Gaming was one of them. You just got a lot of weird shit sometimes.
Yeah, so let's put Godzilla on Game Boy and make him look like the dragon from Bubble Bobble.
Pretty
Be-
much.
but like when you see this and like you're so not prepared, and then you suddenly see this chibi little dragon, and you hear that it's like, what the fuck am I looking at? And then I just love the bit where he's like, "Oh, I don't really know about this Xbox and PlayStation 2, but let's see what these games are about." And then he finds out that these are the games that he's been
Yep.
looking forward to his entire life, and I think it was a really good episode, and
Yeah.
especially another part where he did like the Castlevania retrospective. I really like those two.
Mm, that's fair.
Which How did you feel about those now that you have the Castlevania show under your belt?
It was interesting. I enjoyed it.
Hmm. Like to see where everything got started, I
Mm.
assume, and then suddenly you get to the Castlevania 64 game, and you're like, the hell is this?
Well, I mean, I kind of knew where it got started. Like again, I grew up during that era too, right? So I have some experience with a lot of that as well. But that's kind of the stuff I enjoy more is just seeing someone go more in depth on things like that and where kind of something came from to where it's at that moment. I enjoy stuff like that a lot more. So yeah, that was
Mm-hmm.
something I enjoyed a lot more. And
Fair
saying that too
enough.
many times. Like, that's the kind of content I like, though, right? I love,
Mm.
I'm definitely someone who the long form essays appeal to nowadays. I love deep dives into things, especially if you
Yeah.
can give me information that I didn't have before, and it's something that I'm a little bit interested in already, anyways. Love it, love stuff like that, and I love that
I
we're getting
agree.
more stuff like that.
I agree. And then we're moving on to kind of to the 2010s, where the nerd kind of slowed down, because up until this point he was doing 2 episodes a month. So at 2010 he started taking it a bit easier, and he did one a month.
He doesn't upload
But
hardly anything anymore, right? Or is it still about the same? He doesn't upload
yeah,
anywhere near as
it
much anymore.
depends. It depends, because that's something we're gonna get to. The work production change, because back in those days he was still doing it. That okay, there's a game. I think I'm gonna do it. This is like all I'm focusing on for the moment. And in later years, he started doing that he's kind of working on several episodes at once,
Mm,
but we'll get to those in a bit.
okay.
But for 2010, I think as some of my favorite episodes, the one I think I told you to watch it. What did you think about the Plumbers Don't Wear Ties game?
I don't know. I didn't get to that one. I don't think. I think that was one of the ones I missed off the list. Dang.
Oh my
Yeah.
god! Because I was so ready for you to see that. Because listen, you
Quickly go
see
watch it
it.
at 2 times speed.
But listen, if you trust me that when you see it, you're going to lose your mind. Okay,
Uh huh.
that game is just something. But then, as I just found out, as I was kind of rewatching some of the stuff for
I just
this,
want to. I want to interrupt you briefly. just to let our audience know, HC gave me a long ass list, by the way.
Hey, and
I
yeah,
feel
I
like
know.
this is the cut down list. It's like, oh, I should cut that. I should cut that. I'll give you this list. This is long enough. And like, I love how you sent me think that's mostly it. Like there was more, but I cut some of that stuff. I'm like, oh,
I did also because I think I'm kind of sad because I don't think I told you to do the Kingdom Hearts one about the timeline
I
that he
kind of have to
did.
go do that one now. I guess. Darn line, damn it.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
Kingdom
I,
Hearts.
I'll.
Fuck
uh,
me.
No,
I have
I'll
to.
tell you why I will tell you why I told you not to do this one. Basically, but basically, with the plumbers don't wear ties one. Listen, forget the fact that it's you see it, you'll know why it sucks, okay? But as I was preparing for this episode, guess what? They fucking re-released the thing on Switch and PlayStation and Xbox, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Wild. Ah,
So so
you didn't
fucking
hear
weird.
nothing.
What?
The video started playing.
Oh wait. Are you seeing this right now?
No, I have to have it muted, so I'm not. I just clicked on it, was all, and
Okay,
it started playing. I forgot it's autoplay.
okay, fair.
So the audience might hear
And
music all of a sudden. You hear nothing.
mhm. It's a lie. It's a lie. And the other 2010 episode that I really like, and I think it's probably my favorite nerd episode, is when he does the revisit of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
That one was actually really good, and really showed a good difference between early video and what he does like at that time period, right? Which I
Mhm.
enjoyed. Let's just say it, like I enjoyed more. I enjoyed more, I
Yes.
should say. English, I speak it.
But I just like because in the in the early episode, it, like you get the idea. It's a shitty game. He doesn't want to spend too much time on it. And
Mhm.
then but he doesn't really explain it. Not that he can, because the game is a piece of shit and you can barely do anything. But then when he actually explains the idea, when there's just the shot of him and saying, you see, when you play as Hyde, you are essentially playing the same level you played as Jekyll, but in reverse. So if you reach the same spot you died as Jekyll as Hyde, then you die as Hyde. Wrap your head around that, because yeah, what is this shit? Like, why would you make a game like this? And then also, when it goes, wouldn't it be a good reason to call off the wedding? Like, come on, he's having quite a day. He just needs to call the bride and be like, honey, I'm late. Everyone wants to kill me. And he goes, and then when it goes also, what makes him think the church is gonna be any better? Is the priest going to throw candles at him? Is Jesus going to climb down the cross and start hit him with it? It's hilarious.
No, yeah, it was good.
And then when at the end when he gives this all inspirational speech about how deep and philosophical the game is, and and then it ends with a close up on his face going, "Oh, you could just say the game fucking sucks." Every time I say that, I just burst into laughter.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm easy to please, but it
You
gets
are.
me. Yeah, thanks for that.
No, I get it though, right? Like I can absolutely see how people would find it really, really funny and really enjoy it. Even if it's
Mm,
not for me, right? Like I can sit here and
yeah,
still respect and understand why people find it funny and enjoy it. 100%. I get it. Nothing wrong with that.
yeah. Also, I just have to go back a bit. There was the Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle episode, right?
Mhm.
That's another episode that again, it's a guy beating up Bugs Bunny, but I like the idea that Bugs Bunny comes back with a vengeance, and essentially because it's also kind of surprising. How if you said it, how surprised were you by how many of these games actually are?
Not all that much. Again, I grew up during this era too. A lot
Mhm.
of stuff got released back in the day. Like
Yeah, but
like
the
you
fact that they
compare
got
it to
to
now,
four,
not as like huh, say again.
but what that they fucking got to four, like maybe one or
I'm
two,
I'm
but
not
they got up to
surprised
four
though.
and five.
I'm not surprised though by that. Like a lot of stuff got released back then. A lot of stuff.
But
Like, it
actually,
is
what
insane how much. Like, even comparing it to now, like a lot of people say, and I think more stuff does get released now, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like there was more being released back then than there was now. Really, I don't know.
Mhm.
It's hard to say.
It depends, I guess. It depends on the times,
I
but
guess it depends also, like, if you count indies or not as well, and
yeah.
indies you should count, but like if you just look at the main idea of the industry, the AAA industry, very little gets released nowadays, right? In comparison to back then. And if you look
Yeah.
at like but if you add in indies, a lot still gets released, but I think it's still less than back then, right? So
Mm,
much got sequels that just
But
did not deserve it at all.
yeah, but the reason I'm asking about Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle is because apparently, if you do your research, you find out that the NES Bugs Bunny game in Japan it was Roger Rabbit.
Wild. Hmm.
And then the Game Boy ones were like one of them is Mickey Mouse, and in the other, like in some regions it's Mickey Mouse, in others it's Bugs Bunny, and in others it's Garfield, in others it's Ghostbusters. Like the Crazy Castle games are like, I can send you a video afterwards that explains that it's like the wildest shit you'll ever see. Trust me.
I guess it has to be a thing of like what was popular in what area, right?
I
Or
get,
what was more
and also
popular.
and also copyright, and also copyright.
True. Copyright's a big one because it'd be different in different areas all over. So
And
yeah, which is wild.
that's actually the reason why Crazy Castle 5 has Woody Woodpecker, because the developers apparently lost their Looney Tunes rights. Now
Wild.
you know.
Now I know. I've learned something about Crazy Castle, something I never really cared about and still
Yeah.
won't.
So I guess now moving on. So another episode I told you to see is the Rob episode.
Hmm.
As you probably saw by the title card that premieres before, this was episode 100
Yes.
of AVGN. And I thought it was a really good. If you were supposed to, if this was supposed to be the 100 episode, I think it was really good in the way to also kind of give the nerd a character arc, because at the end of the day his life is being trapped in this basement playing shitty games, right?
Hmm.
but but then when suddenly Rob gets rid of all the shitty games in the world, the nerd realizes he's kind of nothing without those shitty games, and he decides to fight for them. I like this idea, to kind of give the nerd a bit more of a character,
Hmm.
which moves us on to an announcement James made in 2010 that he completed the script for the AVGN movie. Obviously, a bit after the 100 episode came out, the movie entered early pre-production, where they started doing the crowdfunding and everything. People kind of got people were like, "What is this crowdfunding shit? Why can what is going on?" And because honestly, James wasn't all that transparent with it. But essentially, the movie the budget they asked for like 75K dollars, and they ended up making then I'm getting 320K,
Hmm.
somewhere around there. So, for all intents, that campaign was a big success, and they started filming. 4 years after the announcement, the movie comes out. I assume the movie is one of the things from the list you caught up on.
Yes, I did watch that.
What did you think about the movie?
God, it was bad. It was bad.
You're not the only one who thinks that.
No, I know I'm not. I kind of looked up what different people thought about it, and everyone pretty much agrees this was bad. Like, there's a few people who's like, "No, I liked this. This was fun." Like, no, this was bad.
I- I'll tell you this one. I'll tell you this one.
It had some
I
fun
like.
moments. Like, I laughed here or there, but it's bad. It's bad. It's really bad.
Like, here's the thing. I like the movie, but I fully acknowledge that it's not good on any level.
Like, I'm definitely the person who I've talked about this many times, right? I love my so bad they're good movies. I
Mhm.
don't know if I'd fit this one in that category personally, right?
Here's the thing, I don't really say that I'll fit it under a so bad it's good, but there's maybe it's because I'm a fan or something, but
No, fair.
there's something really fascinating and enticing that, this is the director's this is James's movie,
Yeah.
and and nothing can take this away from that, right? Like it's not like that you can say there was an executive that intervened or doesn't get it. You can say that there was some out of touch person that didn't know what to do. This was James's movie, this was his vision, this
Yes.
was his dream project, his magnum opus. And yes, and you feel that, and it's completely legit. But then again, you can also tell that there's like this out of touch boomer executive that just doesn't get it.
Well, it's I think it's his sensibilities and his sense of humor, right? And I would venture out to say that around the 2010s and from that point onward, I think his sensibilities and his sense of humor just didn't mesh with that kind of era and what we've moved into since then, right? And I think that's
Well,
why you've seen him change too, right? He himself, right? Even the angry video game, like you've
yeah,
seen that
let's
persona
say that
change to better fit the times, right? But
because to be honest, the node is a lot more mellow in the movie, which is honestly one of the things that I'm
which
kind
is
of
saying something, I think, because I
with.
didn't think it was.
And here's the thing, though,
But I get what you mean.
He feels a lot more because it feels that in this world of insanity, when he has his, crazy lame sidekick or this executive that tags along on the journey and becomes a good girl, and all the army people and the scientists and everything. He's weirdly enough the straight man to all of this madness.
Yeah, which is wild.
And I'm not sure how to feel about that because on the one hand, kind of makes sense that your lead is the straight man that has to react to all the stuff around him, but then again, he's also the angry video game nerd. You kind of expect him to be angry, right?
Well, I mean, you say that, but then we have movies like The Mask exists and other stuff with like Jim Carrey, like Ace Ventura, right? Like
Mhm.
those movies. Like I don't think your main character has to be the straight man to
Oh
everyone
no no no
else's
no! I'm
zaniness.
not saying no. I'm not saying that. On the contrary,
Oh no, fair,
I'm
fair.
saying
Okay,
I'm saying that in terms of the movie, I get it. Maybe well, the nerd is who we know, so obviously he's the one that kind of needs to be this, mirror to the people watching. That he's like the straight man that has to react to all this insanity with us. But he's also the angry video game nerd. I don't want to connect with him. I want to see him get mad. You
fair. No, no, no.
right?
Okay, I get you. Like you're saying, you think it
Mhm.
would have been better if the world was the straight man to his zaniness, right? Like the other characters weren't.
Exactly.
That's fair,
Mhm.
and I would agree with that. I think it would have been
Because
better that way.
because I'm also thinking, there's also there's something weird about us because in the universe of the movie, the nerd is like a well-established celebrity because of his videos, right?
Mhm.
But but they also play with the idea that the nerd is a living being that makes these videos to warn people from bad games, and that's not really what the show is. And also, if he's an actual person, does this mean Bugs Bunny and Spider Man and all these people actually exist in this world?
Yes.
Fair enough, but I would also like. So, what kind of world is this? If the nerd is the straight man, that this world is fucked up, why not go all the way with it?
No, no, no. Can't do that. That's too much HC.
I guess it was. I was asking for the
I don't.
one.
I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately, for this one.
Yeah, no, it's not a matter that I'm asking for an answer.
No,
It's
fair,
just
fair.
that we're not, because at first, the first time I watch it, I'm like, okay, I'm having fun, I'm digging this, and also because if you're going to make a movie about the angry video game nerd, it might as well be about ET, right? And that whole story.
True.
I like the idea, the basis for the movie is the best it can be. It's just that I'm not sure if I would have necessarily written it like that. I'm not sure. And also, you can hear kind of in the commentary for in the Blu-ray commentary for this and everything that James is kind of proud of the fact that there are two, that there are two strong female characters in the movie, and it's like, yeah, but they also there's a that's a little line in the movie where one of them goes, "I was hoping I could get out of this without objectifying myself in a sexy cat fight, but it's impossible now."
Hmm.
See, the mixed messages here are weird,
I think
and
another problem this film has is it did not need to be 2 hours long. Or almost
it,
2 hours long.
yeah, it's 2 hours and it
It's
is
too long.
long.
It's too
Too long,
long.
and also like by the end of it, I don't really know what the nerd even learned because like did he learn that his fans don't need him to protect them, and that ET might not be the worst thing ever, like everyone made it out to be? Okay, sure. What do you want me to say? I guess that's development, but also
Listen,
it's
HC, what he
yeah.
learned at the end of the day was that it's all about family.
Don't you start. Don't you fucking start.
It
Uh,
all comes
but
back to family.
but I will
Every
say
time.
though, but I will say that it is I did like though that when he does actually review the ET game, there's one line that I actually like where he says that how come the FBI agents can pass over the holes, and he goes, yeah, pass over the hole. I'm gonna pass over your mom's hole. That line gets me. That line cracks me up. I I'm very juvenile, I know, but
I'm aware.
yeah, but I also like the idea that what he does. If the nerd would say that ET is a piece of shit and give it a finger or destroy it or something, you would kind of see this coming. But I do enjoy the idea that he actually goes, something. It's not that the game itself is really terrible, but I guess the world just kind of needed something to hate at the moment, and this just happened to be it, because it does show a bit of a growth for him, that he's just doesn't just look for saying this sucks, but he's also saying, hey, you know what? There's a good chance that we might have overblown it. It doesn't necessarily deserve it, but things just sometimes happen for unexplained reasons.
Mhm.
So I kind of enjoy that. And again, I've seen the movie a few times, and like I enjoy it, but I'm fully aware that it's not good,
No,
not by a long shot.
it's a bad film. But I mean, at the same time, right? Like, I give it a little bit of credit because it's a film that's made off of like a $320,000 budget. You're not gonna get far with that. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and then
And
well,
maybe if they
but
had
that's when
chosen to do
you.
different things, right, they could have made a better film. I'm not gonna say they couldn't have made a better film because I think they absolutely could have made a better film.
Mhm,
But I'm not surprised that it's not a good film, I guess you would say, because it is such a low budget, right?
mhm. Well, but then again, the low budget is really like for effects and stuff. The budget doesn't necessarily affect the script, which is written by the guy who created the nerd.
True.
And
True.
this kind of brings up everything that people have pointed out, and while James never really said anything about it, maybe you would feel it as someone who never really got it in the first place. People think that this movie kind of broke James's spirits when it comes to the nerd.
Well, I mean, he definitely has, like, since this, right? He's slowed down a lot, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if I would say it broke his
Well,
spirit, but I think it's definitely, again, I think, like I said at the start, right? I think the content that he created has moved past him now. I think, as I said before, there are people who've come along and who have taken the content that he made and ran with it. Again, he walked so they could run, right? And they did, honestly, like, it's not even an argument. Like, they did better and still do better than what he did then and what he does now, especially. Like, I think JonTron is probably more popular than him. I would argue. Like JonTron's
I'm
fallen
not
off now.
sure.
Don't get me wrong. Like he's kind of also disappeared, but like I would argue that JonTron, Cat Icarus, and a couple of others became bigger household names than what AVGN did. I would say.
There's a good chance that you're right, but and this
I'm
is
not gonna
something I
firmly
was,
like yeah I'm 100% on this. I'd bet on it. No, but I would say like again people have come along. The content moved past him,
yeah.
and I don't.
And
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say though that when I said that the movie broke him because he always wanted to make a feature length, and with the nerd
Mm,
being popular, it was like his chance. And I didn't mention this, but they filmed the Angry Video Game Nerd movie in California
mm.
because I think because and the reason for this is probably because James tried to get it as a launching pad to get into Hollywood.
Which fair I get. You know,
Mm. I
it's
get
it's
it
a
too.
hard, but like I think that was a mistake. I would say
Yeah, and
because
that's
that's
you see, that's the thing that I think if he would have filmed it he lived in Philadelphia back in the time, as far as I'm aware. So, I think if he would have just done it in Philly with people he knows, with the cast he knows, and everything, it would have turned out better.
mm. Yeah. I think that's another like I get it wanting to get into Hollywood and everything, especially because like I know he like went to film school. He studied to become
Yeah.
like a director or stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
Something
Yep.
like that with film school. I get it, but Hollywood's just notoriously hard to get into, man. It's just like good
Yep.
fucking luck. It very much is an
And
industry of who you know, and if you don't know someone, that's it. You're done.
mhm. And that's the thing. I think it was his chance to try and get the foot in the door, but it didn't go as planned because he did manage to screen it in some theaters across the U.S., which go him for that.
Yeah.
But I think there was this thing that when the movie didn't become the big success, that I think that may have broken him down a little because it's also after and also worth noting that around the time the movie was completed, he had his first daughter.
Mm,
So that also changes some things.
yes, it does.
Mm.
Hard to take care
Uh,
of kids and do videos.
mhm.
They
Which
require
leads us
one of those
to
requires a lot of time.
mhm. And this leads us to kind of modern day AVGN, where the Cinemassacre in general, James's website, Cinemassacre was bought by Screenwave Media.
Mhm.
And they basically are now doing some AVGN writing and editing for James.
Mhm.
So don't get me wrong, I get it that whenever even when modern day YouTubers develop, they need other people to kind of help in, with more editors, more sound people, and SEO people and everything. But now you kind of take in James out of the equation completely. He's not recording. He's barely recording the games. He's barely scripting them. He's barely editing them. He's just an actor that shows up and does his shtick, right?
Yeah.
And it does take away from that a bit to some degree.
But at the same time I get it because
Mhm.
like
I
it's
get it.
so much work, right, to do all that yourself.
Mhm.
Like so
And
much work.
yeah, it's a lot of work. I get it. I'm not, and again, I'm not criticizing him for doing that. But I also feel like it doesn't sound like half the time it doesn't even sound like what he's talking about because Screenwave is trying to push him to do stuff that's popular. So like I said, that Kingdom Hearts timeline video, that was made in order to coincide with Kingdom Hearts 3 because that was coming out at the
Mm,
time. And but
and you can kind
James
of tell
never
it's not as good, right?
but here's the thing, James never played Kingdom Hearts, so and the script he's given is not really that unique or angry video game nerd like. It honestly like it
Mm.
just sounds like someone took some lines from Wikipedia, twitched them together. There you go, read this. Try to make it funny.
Yeah, it sounds like someone just kind of like, here's all of the, like most popular memes that people like to say about Kingdom Hearts. Go make that funny in your voice, and it's like that's never gonna work. Yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah. And because also the Kingdom Hearts timeline bullshit has been going on for so long since then, so it's like, great, another person is doing it. I
Listen,
know it's
I
the
agree,
nerd,
but yeah, like it's a dead joke at this point. I
and
agree,
that
but it's a dead joke.
yeah, and that's the other thing that he did a two-part review of Sonic 06, and don't get me wrong, Sonic 06 deserves the bashing it gets, right? I'm not going to
I
try and defend
I
it.
thought that one was okay
No,
personally.
like here's the thing: the reviews themselves, I actually didn't mind. To his credit, I didn't mind the Sonic 06 reviews. I thought they were funny, but I would still say it's Sonic 06. The game is almost as old as the nerd, and at this point, people have trashed it, people have destroyed it,
True,
people have beaten the horse up until it's dead, and then they did an exorcist and it died again.
true,
Okay.
true.
And there's a YouTuber I like called Clement. He refers to himself as the Great Clement, but his username is Clement J642 or something like that. He made a 3.5 hours long review of Sonic 06, which covers every problem the game has. After you see something like this, what else is there to say about the game?
I couldn't watch a 3.5 hour long review of Sonic 06. I'm sorry.
Well, to be honest, he splits that up. I'm just,
I mean,
but
still
you get
though,
my point.
I get you, but it's like someone showed me. I forget the name of the YouTuber. I wish I could remember, but they were doing like long form content of like some of the old shows. Like they had like, and again, I love the idea of the long form content, but there's some of it that I cannot be arsed to fucking watch because it is too much. They were doing like,
Well,
you remember I think it was the Salmon Cat show and all of the shit that surrounded
oh
that.
yeah, yeah. I
This
think I saw
person,
that video.
this
Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Did you see this video? Because this video was like 6 to 8 hours long.
Yeah,
You
something,
have
I
seen it? Oh
saw
my
that.
god.
But because here's the thing,
I
YouTube is nice
haven't.
enough to have it so that you can close the video, and then when you come
Yes.
back, it
It'll
will
remember where
replay
you're
from
at.
the
Yeah.
same point.
Yeah.
So one, I can take a break, and two,
True.
I think, I think I was drawing or doing something else that it serves as a background noise.
Fair, fair. Yeah. That helps a lot as
So,
well. But yeah, it's
mhm,
like, oh man, I love the idea of long form content, but some of it is just like, this is too long.
yeah.
Like, man, I would like to watch this. I'm curious, but I'm just like, I'm not that curious. I'm not in that mood yet. Maybe if I'm like really just sick and in bed and just don't want to move or get up, I'll pop something like that on and just vaguely
That
pay
was the
attention to it. But
that was the reason why I watched the Snyder Cut.
fair.
So, but back to AVGN and Sonic 06. I like the reviews, honestly.
No, fair.
But I just feel like, what do these reviews have to do with these? They don't distract me enough from the fact it's making fun of Sonic 06 again.
I
And
mean, I would say
again,
the
the
Sonic
game,
06 one, from what I saw, still felt more like it was in his voice, though. At least,
to some degree, but I will say there's a part in the second part, right?
yeah,
Because okay, in the first part is basically just covering the first few levels as Sonic, right?
yeah.
But then in the second part he's actually beating the game. And the thing is that okay, it's you see that he beats the game because he's reaching the final levels and everything, but you don't see him play through Shadow and Silver's episodes, and this disappointed me because if you played Sonic 06, you know of the ball puzzle. The ball puzzle is like designed to make people like the angry video game nerd lose their shit.
Hmm.
And it's never mentioned once. You see what I mean?
No, I know.
It's such a big missed opportunity, which I feel again is kind of like oh well, people make fun of Sonic 06, Silver is a terrible boss battle. Hedgehog human romance. Ha ha ha, what a story. The you get those things and that's it. And again, there are some funny bits in these reviews. I'm not going to say there aren't, but the idea has been done to that. That's not
Yeah,
AVGN.
that's fair. I get it.
And then though there is an episode that I kind of like, and that's the Mega Man one.
Hmm. I thought those were also pretty good.
Yeah, and but the ironic thing about the Mega Man one, tell me this doesn't feel like a way to try and give the nerd closure and retire it.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Mhm.
That's fair in a way.
Because
Yeah.
it feels in a film either the Rob video or the movie or the Mega Man video or some others. It kind of feels like sometimes James wants to be done with the nerd, but he
I mean,
can't
that's
be
fair
done
though,
with the
right?
nerd. Yeah, I get it,
Because he's been
but
playing it
because
at that point, at this point, right, for like what, over
20
20?
years.
Oh yeah, 20 years. Oh yeah, probably a little. Yeah, 20 years. Yeah, which is, I get it, right? There's a point where you do want to move on from something. You do want to take a break at the very least, or move on completely, or just I'm done with this. This is the past now.
Yeah, though, and maybe not, maybe not retire the note completely, but when he has it, because I find that some of the episodes that he does all by himself, are the ones that seem to like get it. Like there was an episode I didn't tell you to watch it because I haven't seen it for myself before
Mhm.
we decided to do this, but it's like called platypus or something. It's like this game that apparently hypnotizes you if you see it, and then the arcade machine has been dysfunctional, so he tries to find it, and then he does. And at first he says it's a piece of shit, but then he decides no, it's actually pretty good. And you can tell that the game is kind of doing something to him,
Mhm.
and he takes on this really horror, like low budget horror film kind of vibe,
Yeah.
and you can tell that James edited it and directed it and did all of it because you can tell it's his style. You can tell that this is something that he really wanted to do. It's something that he's passionate about,
Yeah.
and I really like that one. I thought it was really good, and I get why there are other editors and other people there, but it feels a bit like something went missing when it became a machine, a corporate machine to some degree.
Again, I think it's fine to have more editors. I think the big thing is just the script writing, right? If
Mhm.
that's not done to it, I think that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah,
Is for videos like this, for videos that in this kind of content and this kind of style, the script writing is going to be the most important thing. And if you're trying to play a character, like you can tell when the script writing is, all right, this just isn't that character, right?
yeah,
This doesn't feel like that person.
hmm
So like I think
and
that's the thing you have to nail the most. Some people now again, right? Like so editing is less important in if for that sort of thing. But some people have a particular editing style for their videos too. And if you don't
mhm,
nail that type of editing style, right? That too can ruin their content as well. Like you think of
yeah,
what's his name? Yeah, like Russian Badger stuff like that, right? Very
mhm,
specific style of editing, right? If
yeah,
his videos change, if, he probably does have other editors, I bet, more than just himself, maybe. But he has to make sure that editing style stays consistent for all of his videos. Otherwise, people are going to enjoy it a lot less. I would just about guarantee you, because it's a very particular editing style that people are there for, not just a character, not just like a
yeah,
persona that he puts on. That's not what they're there for him. So there's things you definitely have to understand and really get about a particular type of persona or a particular type of editing style. And if you don't understand that and you try to replicate it or try to just like mass produce it, if you will, in a way,
yeah. I
it
get you.
just won't work more often than not. You have to have that understanding.
Mhm. This communication,
Yeah, that too. But again, at the same time, if it's something he's looking to just get out of, that I get it fully, 100% understand it. Like he's been doing it, like I said, for over 20 years, and like, again, he's like in his 40s now, I think.
yeah, and you can tell, not to say that it looks old or anything, but you know kind of how when when you see Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man No Way Home, that like you can tell
You can
his
tell he's
age.
older. Yeah, you can tell he looks old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of the vibe I get.
but I mean, it's fair. I get it, right? And sometimes, again, if he wants to move on, like honestly, I think he just should. But I get at the same time, like gotta eat, need that paycheck.
Yeah. But I will say maybe, taking a break isn't gonna hurt too much.
I feel like at this point, right, he's made his money, right? At this point, to some
Hmm.
degree.
Yeah, like again, there's no need. I don't say necessarily retire the node completely, but take a break.
I mean, he still
Uh,
has a lot of those videos that get like a lot of views, right?
mhm.
So I don't know, but um, yeah, I get it.
Mm, I get it too, but and again, I just have to state this over and over again. The At the end of the day, whatever I think, whatever anyone thinks about his current videos
Oh yeah,
or his current endeavors, the impact this guy had on YouTube is undeniable. And I think 20 years later, there are still a few episodes here and there that I enjoy rewatching, and or even new episodes that I say, okay, you know what, that was actually pretty good.
no,
Uh, uh,
100%, right? Like you have to respect what he did and where the internet is at because of that. Because even if you've never watched his content ever in your entire life, because you're too young for it, right? And you've just never heard of it or never seen it, which is possible for some of the people listening to this show.
mhm.
You've probably watched someone, whether you recognize it or not, that was inspired by him, or was inspired by someone who was inspired by him. Like the chain is there, right?
Yep,
100%. And as I said at the start, I fully respect what he did and where the internet's at because of it. Even if I dislike a portion of where the internet has went because of what he did, I still respect, the fact that it more than likely would not be the same at all without him and what he did for the early days of the internet.
agreed.
Well, not the early
Um,
days of the internet, but you get what I mean.
yeah, yeah, I completely understand.
Like the early
And
days of the internet as you know it right now.
mhm. And whatever the internet has in store, James, on the off chance you'll listen to this, thank you,
Yeah,
and
100%.
see you on the next video, whatever that may be.
Yeah, we'll have him on the
And
show next episode.
oh, if only,
If only.
if fucking only. And on that note, I guess I just quick talking about that. The angry video game nerd games that they made are a fine example of when a joke goes too far.
Mm, agreed.
Because listen, I can say a lot of stuff about that game, like the references are great, but also when the references are for stuff about how bad a game can be, the game itself is going to be bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, what can you do at the end of the day? We still have this great creator who gave us
Yeah.
a lot of great things, and inspired a lot of great people to do their thing.
Yeah.
So I nothing but
Fair.
respect for you, Mr. Rolf,
Fair.
and may you continue to yell ass for as many years as possible. And yes, I did have to somehow walk that in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as bad as the second game being called AI Simulation, okay? I at least a level above that, I want to believe.
I'm still
Well,
judging you.
anything judge you always judge me.
I mean,
What
this
is
is
new?
true. I'm judging you
So,
more than normal.
fair enough. Anything else you wish to say before we
No,
wrap up?
again, right? Like as I said before, fully respect what he's done and what he did. As said, internet would not exist in the way it exists now, more than likely without him doing what he did. So full respect. May not be the kind of content I'm into or enjoy as much, but fully respect.
Well, with that said, that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What do you think about the Angry Video Game Nerd? Pre movie, post movie, the movie, any era of it, you can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. So until the next episode, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care and fuck off.
Bye bye.